All right, this is Obeid on behalf of Electronics, and in this video, we'll be talking about contractionary fiscal policy. Okay, so this is contractionary fiscal policies. Now, in a contractionary fiscal policy, what's going to happen is, okay, your aggregate demand. Okay, suppose this is your full potential LRAS. Okay, your aggregate demand will shift to the right. Okay, suppose this is your aggregate demand, and this is your aggregate supply at potential GDP. And when your aggregate demand shifts to the right, suppose somewhere over here, okay, it will lead to inflation. Okay, this is inflation. And because it leads to inflation, apart from monetary policies, okay, which are imposed by the central bank, the federal government may impose a fiscal policy, and this will be a contractionary fiscal policy. Okay, and this is to push the aggregate demand curve, which is this one over here, AD1, towards the left, towards full potential, where the suppliers can supply that particular demand. All right, so if the demand is not too high, it won't cause inflation. All right, so when it comes to a contractionary fiscal policy, okay, this would be the opposite of an expansionary fiscal policy. Okay, so the way it's done, the government may increase, okay, taxes, which has to do with personal income tax as well as business tax. Okay, so increase taxes, so taxes go up. Okay, and this has to do with personal income tax plus business taxes. Okay, so in short, your personal consumption will go down because of an increase in taxes, and business capital investment, okay, such as investment on land, equipment, building, okay, so on and so forth, this investment will go down because obviously the cost of production goes up with an increase in taxes. Okay, so investment goes down as a result of which your GDP goes down and your aggregate demand goes down because both of these they make up a big chunk of your aggregate demand and your real GDP. So your GDP will go down and your aggregate demand will go down, pushing the aggregate demand curve towards the left, towards full potential. All right, now apart from those two, okay, you also have government grants, which are federal government grants to the state and local governments, as we talked about in the last video, which has to do with expansionary fiscal policy. Okay, so with the federal government grants, the government grants will go down. So government grants, they go down as a result of which, okay, what's going to end up happening is, okay, the state and local governments will receive less money from the federal government. So state and local governments, so state plus local governments. Okay, federal government grants. So you have federal government grants. So federal government grants, they go down. So federal government grants to state and local governments are reduced, as a result of which your aggregate demand curve will shift to the left because obviously the government spending on infrastructure. So let's say this has to do with the state and local governments. If they spend less on infrastructure, on public infrastructure, okay, your aggregate demand will be reduced because government spending also makes up a chunk of your aggregate demand and real GDP. So aggregate demand will go down and your real GDP will go down. Okay, as a result of which this curve over here will shift to the left towards potential GDP. And that would serve the purpose of a contractionary fiscal policy, which is to bring inflation under control by reducing aggregate demand. All right, so that will be it for this video. On behalf of Electronics, this is Obey. Have yourself a great day.